Hey everybody, welcome back. Got another annoying problem with the Jeep here. If you're getting a burnt oil smell outside of the car, or if you're in the cab and you're running the heat and you've got a burnt oil smell, this is probably the problem. So it usually happens if I'm driving down the highway at high speed and then I come up to a red light and I've got the heat running, then I can smell a burnt oil smell. So there's an oil leak inside of the engine. But when I look under the car, there's no drips of oil. When I check around inside of the engine, I don't see an oil leak anywhere. So it was really hard to diagnose this. But it's a pretty common problem with these Pentastar engines. So I'm going to show you where the oil chiller is, and you'll be able to see the oil on the inside. And so I'm going to look inside the engine here to see if you can take a look. And you see here's where the oil filter goes, but if you look inside there down towards the bottom, you're able to see some oil that's pooled up. And that's where the oil leak is happening. It's hitting the engine, it's burning off, and then as I've got the heat running, it's sucking the burnt oil smell into the cab. So today, we're gonna be lifting off the air manifold. We're gonna have to remove the air intake tube. I'll link a video up here where I'm fixing a P0128 error, and I show how to take this off. There's another video if you want to go to. It's where I'm fixing a rocker arm that's broken, where I lift off the manifold, but I'll also be going through it here as well. I laid out everything that you're going to need in order to do this job. So I've got my replacement oil cooler here. I'll also link to a video that I created, which is a quick unboxing in case you decide to buy this one off of Amazon. You're going to need a 5/16 socket as well as a 1/4 inch socket to undo the upper and lower intake. You're going to need a little gimbal socket here. Some of the screws, especially in the back, are hard to get to. I've got a 10mm wrench to get a couple of the bolts off on the upper manifold. You're going to need a screwdriver, wrench. I use some vice grip pliers. There's a pinch clip on a hose that attaches to the oil cooler, which is really hard to get off. It was much easier if I could just clamp it and then slide it off. This is also a clip remover. They like to use a lot of clips to attach the wiring harnesses and cables. I got this from Baxter Auto Parts. I'll try to find something similar online. This just makes getting those clips off a lot easier. Not necessary. Traditionally, I use a screwdriver to get those clips off, but there's two in the back that were really, really hard to get off of, so I just had to spend a couple bucks to try to get this, and this helped pop them off. You're going to need some socket wrench extenders, especially for the screws that go into the manifold, as well as a socket wrench. It's also helpful but not necessary to have some rubber gloves. Definitely going to get oil and antifreeze coolant on your hands, as well as a shop vac to help clean out the oil. Oil is going to pool out of the air cooler when you remove it, so it's easier to just vacuum it out. And you're also definitely going to need some rags to clean up all the oil. Okay, so I'm starting to get at the oil cooler. So you can see I've got the air intake tube removed. I got my 10mm socket or wrench out, remove this bolt. There's another bolt. I've got the wrench attached to it right now back there. Got to loosen that up, remove those, and then I'll be able to remove the manifold. Okay, so as you can see, I got that nut off there, and I got the other one off in the back, and now it's time to start loosening up these bolts. I'm using my 5/16 here. As you can see, I got this one loosened up. I'm starting to loosen up that one. There's one there, one inside there, one there, one there, one there, one in the back, and then I'll be able to get the air manifold off. So let me go ahead and do those, and then we'll keep going. Okay, so I got all my bolts there loosened up. To get this one in the back, I used a little gimbal socket like this so that I can get back in there and loosen it up. And there's one more bolt back here that you got to loosen up, and then you should be able to get the manifold off. So because I'm not in here all the time, I forgot about a couple other little steps. There's one tube here, there's a plug right there that you've got to get off, and there's a tube in the back. Once you disconnect those three things, then you can get the air manifold off. Okay, so I got that tube off of this valve right here, and now I need to disconnect this wire right here. When removing the upper intake manifold, you'll have to remove this tube and this tube from the manifold, as well as these 3 different wiring harnesses, and then you'll be able to remove it. Now we're going to remove this foam here, and then disconnect some of the wires, and then we got to take off the lower intake manifold, and then we'll be able to get to the oil cooler. So next I'm going to disconnect the fuel injectors. To disconnect those, it's really easy. You just get a screwdriver in there, you pop up that red safety cap. Once you've got that popped up, there's a little black piece underneath it that you can press in, and then you can wiggle it right off to disconnect it. So now you got to remove the fuel injector tube from the engine. There is a blue clip in it that you remove, and then you press in this white button, and then you can push it back off of its valve here. Make sure that you've got a towel or something out of there. A little fuel's going to leak out, and then you've got that disconnected. Next, you're going to unscrew the lower manifold. There's 2, 4, 6, 8 bolts that you unscrew, and you should be able to just pull them all the way up once you've got them fully unscrewed. In the back, there's 2 clips that you're going to have to unclip. I ran down to Baxter, got this nifty little tool to help me remove those clips. Chrysler Jeep loves those clips, so they're everywhere. I'll try to put a link down below if I can find it online, so if you all need to get that, you know where to find it. So once you've got all 8 of those screws unscrewed and you've got the 2 clips in the back removed, then you'll be able to lift up the lower manifold, and now you can finally get access to the cooler. One thing to keep in mind when you take the lower manifold off, there's still going to be some fuel inside of it, so be careful that you don't spill fuel everywhere. Just have a rag ready to capture it. So to remove the oil cooler, you got 5 bolts you've got to loosen. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Use your 1/4 inch socket. You can, much like the bolts that keep the lower intake manifold on, just loosen them up until you can pretty much pull them almost all the way out with your fingers, and then you'll be able to remove the actual oil cooler itself. So I got all 5 of those bolts undone. Wanted to show you these wiring harnesses. So this first one, you pop the red one up with a screwdriver, and then you can pull it off. The one that's underneath it, you pinch the back of it, and then you'll be able to pull it off. And there's a tube underneath, which is really difficult to kind of get off. It's got one of these pinch harnesses that you pinch and then get off. For mine, it had a plastic zip tie holding it down that I had to cut in order to get it to the point that I could actually put a vice grip pliers on this to squeeze it and then to get that tube off. But now that I've got all those wiring harnesses undone and the bolts undone, I can actually remove out the old oil cooler. Be careful, it's going to leak oil and coolant out. I'll compare this to the new one, and then also get my shop vac out and some towels and clean up some of that coolant and oil down there. So here we've got the old oil cooler and the brand new oil cooler. If you're interested in seeing more information about this particular oil cooler that I bought, go here and I've got a quick unboxing video. But one of the reasons I like this is that it's got an aluminum casing instead of the plastic casing. It just seems like this is going to be more durable than the plastic, and the plastic is what warps and leaks. As you can see, they're exactly the same. If I flip it up, and I'm probably going to make a mess by doing this, but if I flip it up, one thing that you can see is you see how this one has got the straight edges and that this one has got not straight edges. This is actually the newer design. So the 2014 and above WK2s have this newer design that's more reliable. This is the older design. You can put the newer design in the older cars, but one thing that you'll have to keep in mind if you do this is you can see it's got a different filter top, and the reason why is because the filter is different. You're now going to need to get the filter for the newer cars, but if you go back and you just replace it with the old OEM or you replace it with one of the older styles, they're just as good. This one is just supposedly built a little bit better. It was a little bit more expensive, so I had a little extra money to spend, so I went ahead and got the upgraded one. Same with me getting the aluminum one. You don't have to go this. You could just replace it with the good old-fashioned OEM. I mean, my Jeep Grand Cherokee is up over 100,000 miles, and now I'm just needing to replace this. So if you replace it with another OEM, following that logic, you could go another 100,000 miles. So I'm going to go ahead, put this one in, hook up the wiring harnesses. I'll kind of quickly show you step by step how to go through that, and then we should be able to get the car going. All right, so I got this all cleaned up, got all that oil and coolant vacuumed up out of there. As you can see, it looks much cleaner. So I've got my new oil cooler here that I can place right where the old one used to sit. And you can see, even though it's a different shape, it fits right in there. So I'm going to get the wiring harnesses hooked up, get the tube hooked up, get this thing bolted down, and then we'll start doing the whole process in reverse to get everything put back together. So you can see I got the new gaskets in, both top and bottom, and now it's time to just go ahead and put the lower intake back in, line the screws up, screw them back in. So let me go ahead and do that, and then we'll come. I got the 8 bolts bolted back down. I reconnected the fuel injection tube in the back, put the seat clamp back on. Now all you got to do is put this foam back into place, and then put the upper air intake manifold back on, and then I'm going to reconnect it, and we're almost done. Now I've got the manifold back on. I've got each of these screws screwed back in, got it attached. I've got the harnesses hooked up, one there, one in the back there. One more harness to hook up to the air intake tube once I attach it. Don't forget to attach that harness as well. I've got the bolts tightened up here and there, as well as the bolt in the back. There may be a couple bolts in the back depending upon how your bracket is attached. But once you've got all this attached, put the air intake tube back in and you're all done. You've now replaced your oil cooler, and I've actually taken it out for a test drive, and if I take a look in there, look at that, no oil pooling up. It's all nice and clean. No more oil leak. I ran the heat at full blast after driving on the highway. No burnt oil smell. Burnt oil smell all gone. So if you found this video helpful, please give me a like down below, subscribe to my channel. I've also put links to all of the equipment that you're going to need, as well as where you can buy all of it. Hopefully you all found this helpful. Please leave a comment if you see something that I could have done differently. If you've got questions, if you've got comments, please feel free to comment. I try to respond to all the comments. Hope you all found this helpful, and thank you very much.